And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. I'm finally ready to talk about the Assassin balance changes, Crowfall 7.0 Shadows Update. So to answer your first question, yes, I'm still definitely playing a Cutthroat after the 7.0 changes. Do I like the changes? Some of them are really useful quality of life things. A few of them really kind of deter from the playstyle that I've become acclimated to over the past few months. Overall, I do think Assassin is in a better spot from a balance standpoint. It's a little bit more complex. It's no more just two button mashing. You have a few more buttons to hit. But I think the overall damage of the class has actually gone up despite having a slightly lower immediate top end. Now, I'm not going to go through point by point and talk about every single change that happened because you can read the patch notes just like I can, but a couple things really changed that are dramatically impacting the way a Cutthroat operates. So first up, some pretty dramatic changes to backstab. First, the base damage is slightly increased and they've reduced the behind target multiplier, but they've also added that if the target's exposed, it always counts as from behind. Now, this is a blanket change for all assassins, not something just specific to Cutthroat, but they did make some changes to the Cutthroat backstab as well. Before, we had it count as from behind and we had a reduced cooldown. The cooldown is no longer reduced, but in exchange for that, they're giving us an execute if we're using it against an exposed target. Now, with the assassin changes, they're pretty much shoving exposed down our throat. You have to have exposed on your target for majority of things that you're going to want to do. So it's a good change overall. You're going to get a little bit more top end damage out of backstab as long as you're using it as an execute. You just don't get to spam it as often, and everybody is getting that benefit of using it from behind if the target is exposed. The next really kind of big thing is the change to sneak attack. It now teleports you 10 meters and activates the instant poison buff. So originally sneak attack was absolutely terrible because you had to use it directly in melee. I don't think I know anybody that spent a talent point on this, but now with these changes, as well as the bonus from being a Cutthroat that you're getting a barrier when it's used, it definitely becomes a pretty viable opener. It's still a shorter range than Blink Step, but it's getting you to your target a little bit faster than you would with a backstab. Plus, you have that chance of getting the auto crit, so that's still a pretty good ability. I like this change. So to further kind of go with what they're doing with the expose as part of the assassin kit, Shiv will now refresh expose on an exposed target. So this is a really beneficial thing. It really forces people to use and pay attention to their Shiv cooldown to keep their target exposed, to maximize all their damage, to make sure that backstab still counts as from behind all the time. Overall, I think this is a pretty good change. Shiv is something that you should have been using anyways, so this is just really doubling down and making sure that it's part of your rotation. So with kidney shot, if the target is exposed, again, we're on that exposed train right now. It's going to generate 1 pip. As you know, kidney shot expends pips, so to get 1 back after kidney shot, that's a really nice upgrade. Although there is something that I don't like that they did with Cutthroat specifically, which is removing the enhancement. So kidney shot is no longer giving you the barrier. They placed that behind sneak attack. The other part that I really didn't like about the kidney shot change, kind of goes hand in hand with the Schadenfreude change. So instead of getting a heal on stun with a hard CC, you get a damage buff. Damage is cool and all, but that heal on the stun, for me was 450, 500 health back every time I stun someone. That really cuts into my survivability, so I'm not as thrilled about this change as some of the other ones. Garrot, you're now also getting the deadly poison buff. This is just a win overall. It really encourages people to be using this ability. I think it was strong already. This just makes the damage on it even better. Blink Step now also activates the instant poison buff. This is another just outright buff to assassin class as a whole. I think it's fantastic that there are more ways to activate your poisons other than just Shiv, and that Shiv can now refresh those poisons, so you have a much higher uptime on your poison damage, which is a really beneficial thing, I think, when we talk about some of the other changes and reducing like a little bit of the top end damage. Decimate, again, another change for exposed. You get a pip back if you decimate an exposed target. It's increasing the base damage but decreasing the weapon damage. So this is kind of trying to put things in check. That way everybody hits a little bit harder with decimate no matter what, but those 130 damage weapons aren't spiking way out of control. They're still massive. I've seen some really huge crits, but they're a little bit more reasonable, just a little. Schadenfreude I touched on a minute ago, replacing the heal with a damage buff. I personally do not like this. I don't think that this is a good change for the way that I play, but there are some of you out there who are a little bit more burst damage focused, and for you guys, you will notice a sizable increase in some of your damage. Now, in typical fashion, Ace taketh away, but also giveth. Yaga's gift now heals you for 250 health when you apply or refresh a poison buff. This is a really nice change. I think you can get a lot of healing uptime on this with Blink Step, Shiv, Garrot, with those three things, applying the poisons and refreshing the poisons, you have a really good opportunity to get it doesn't feel as good as the heal from the old Schadenfreude because it's not as predictable. It's not as large in one go. But overall, I have to say that this is still a nice change. I like it. I'll probably be using this a lot. I think we can all agree that fuck this change. This is malarkey. Absolutely trash. Making to where we can only ult once in combat, and we have to sit there running around flailing for our lives to get back out. There's no more tempo ulting. It has to just be get out and fucking hope. This is blah. Hate it, hate it, hate it. Back to more happiness, we have increased damage of instant and deadly poisons. Again, there's more ways for these to be added, as well as more ways for them to be refreshed. So overall, you should see an increase to your DPS. So the assassin talent tree has been swapped around some. You now natively get backstab and kidney shot at your first talent. So obviously we have to take that one, and it's just plain common sense to take the first two stat bundles. Now we see our first immediate change, that Shiv is now in this middle position where kidney shot was. Shiv, again, is going to be really a staple of any build for any type of assassin. Just the ability to maintain the expose and the poisons on your target. This is going to be really helpful for you. With the changes to Garrote getting some extra damage with the deadly poison application, that is going to be another like must-have for my build. I love using Garrote. I think it's fantastic damage, especially in longer fights. I am currently taking sneak attack because you're getting that extra range with the 10-meter teleport. You're getting the instant application of instant poison, and then the 100% crit strike modifier if the target is exposed. This ability used to be absolutely terrible, but with these changes, it is completely viable. I think it's a pretty strong opener, at a minimum, just for the gap closing ability. So I think that this is going to be a pretty strong ability, something that's a staple in a lot of Cutthroat's kits. Now, everyone knows that Mr. Most Mad likes to be Mr. Most Chunky, so I'm going to take this stat pack down here to pick up Quietude, get some extra con, get some extra health, get some extra anti-crit, and the PDM. Everybody knows I just love stat packs. I think they're a fantastic value. Even though I'm not a fan of Schadenfreude, I'm still going to pick it up here because I want Yaga's gift. I really want the ability to heal when I'm applying the poisons, because that's going to be happening a lot between Blink Step, between Garrote, between Shiv, Sneak Attack. There's going to be a lot of poisons rolling around on the people that I'm hitting, so I just want to make sure that I'm getting as much HP back as I can. So a couple of the changes that we just talked about, Cutthroat is going to get the extra pip generation when they blink step to an exposed target. Again, your target is going to be exposed pretty often if you're doing it right. Sneak attack is going to apply a barrier when used. You're going to get extra durability at the beginning of those fights, very useful. And then backstab is now an execute when used against an exposed target. Again, if you're doing it right, you should have exposed up on whoever you're assassinating anyways. Now, obviously, the number one ability that just makes a Cutthroat is Decimate. Even though they've made those changes to it so that there's a little bit higher low-end damage and a little bit lower high-end damage, you still have to rock with this. It's still one of the best burst abilities in the game. Nothing changes here with Killer's Gift, so we take that. And I'm still using the Shadow Domain because I absolutely am in love with Agent Provocateur still. I love being able to heal while I'm stealthed. Caltrips is good both offensively and defensively, even though it's a little bit more challenging to use now that you have to expose and Caltrips and sneak attack. But I still find plenty of time to use this. It still gets me out of trouble a lot. Normally, I would like Bloodthirsty, because who doesn't like additional damage when attacking from behind? But Backstab doesn't have a reduced cooldown anymore, so I'm not as guaranteed to be attacking from behind, so I just can't really rely on that. So that kind of leaves us with these four choices here. We can go Stat Pack, Blink Step, Extra Minor, or Blur. Now, Blur is an interesting option. It's going to increase your movement speed in combat by 40% and increase your personal damage modifier damage by 30% for 10 seconds. This is a really useful mobility and kind of escape-y ability. I can see where there's value in it, but on a Cutthroat, I just don't think it's the right fit. Now, even though I absolutely love stat packs and getting the extra int and backstab damage is obviously a much bigger boost to damage overall. I play a half elf, so I want to have a little extra chase option. Blink Step is going to do that for me. It's going to give the instant poison application when I use it. It's going to give me an extra pip if I use it on an exposed target. So Blink Step is still going to be kind of my go-to here. The only change that I've made to my disciplines is I'm not running Master of Darkness right now. I'm actually swapped over to Night Stalker. And the reason is Master of Darkness for me was very much about changing the tempo of a fight, resetting it, and having that burst heal that I could apply to myself if I got a stink bomb off. But now that assassins can't use their ultimate as often, I find that you can't really ult to impact the tempo of the fight as much. So for that reason, I'm going with Night Stalker now. It's giving me a little bit more in-fight sustain to go along with my Yaga's Gift. So far, it's going pretty well. I like the increased movement speed and perception during the nighttime. Overall, I think this is probably what I'm going to stick with for at least the next couple weeks. Now, for my stat allocations, I'm still going to go and max out my dex. So we're going to fast forward till that's done. I like having a decent chunk of hit points, so I'm going to boost this up to 70 con. Then I'm going to drop the rest of these points in. I'm only on a green vessel right now, so I don't have like super high-end stats to top out. And as you can see, I'm just in like War Tribe gear right now. So some of these, like my crit damage and my crit strike, aren't as high as they're going to be later once I start rocking some of the crafted equipment. But you can still see, very conservatively, we're still above 650 attack power, still 33% crit strike, which is pretty good. Pretty close to the 150 mark for crit damage at 146. We're still going to get the bonus from Shadow's Linger when we come out of stealth, so that's nice. And then, like I said, I just like having more hit points because I try to stay in the fight as much as possible. Well, there you have it, guys. That is how I have adjusted my Cutthroat Assassin for the 7.0 build. Not a ton has changed. A couple abilities are swapped around. Garrote's a little bit stronger. We heal from a different thing now. More or less, it's the same character that we're used to. You're going to be pressing a lot of the same buttons. So hopefully you're still going to be able to achieve the same level of sturdiness with a good balance of damage while trying out this build. So long story short, not a whole lot is changing for the Cutthroat. You're just using maybe 2 more abilities overall, and you're going to deal more damage over time and slightly less of initial burst. As a reminder, this is just the way that I like to play Cutthroat. There are definitely other ways to play the Cutthroat. There are a multitude of other builds that are completely viable. I'm not claiming that this build is better than anybody else's. This is just the way that I like to play, being a little bit tankier, being a little bit more of a bruiser, and being able to self-sustain while still pushing out respectable damage. If you have questions about the build, or you want to discuss some of the other ideas that you might have, just leave a comment below and I'll get back to you and we can have a conversation about why a certain talent or a major might be a good option for you. Like I said, there's a lot of different ways that you can play the Cutthroat, and I'm really excited to see what some of the ideas that you guys come up with are.